Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to explain to you about the project anomaly detection and local outlier factor for credit card fraud detection. So basically, these are the things that I'm going to walk you guys today. So let's get started with the introduction. So in the introduction part, all you need to know is what you mean by fraud detection and which all customers actually need this fraud detection technique. So the name itself explains that, and it's pretty straightforward to understand. So the fraud detection, it includes modeling the past credit card transaction with the knowledge of ones that turned out to be fraud. So that means there will be some already existing data sets with the transaction details which are known to be fraudulent. So now the machine learning model has to be developed so that it can learn itself, so to identify the new transaction to check whether it is a fraudulent or not. Okay, so that it will help a lot of customers like bank, like ICICI Bank, Canara Bank, HDFC Bank, etc. So those customers will come to know whether the transaction is fraudulent or not, and those people can take the actions accordingly. Okay, and in this particular project we are going to aim to come up with an accuracy rate of almost close to 100 percentage, so that our project will be more better than the existing systems. Okay, so you will understand more about the fraud detection and what all data set we are going to use at later point of time. So but the thing is, so the all the customers of our customers are nothing but the bank, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, SBI Bank, etc. Okay, so because these people will have their own set of customers, and all those customers will have the credit card and they will have a lot of transactions, right? So those banks can use our problem, I mean those banks can use our solution to detect which all transactions were fraudulent and which all transactions are not fraudulent, and they can take the actions on the customers accordingly. Okay, so that's how we are going to help the banks to improve their process. Okay, so but the problem here is, so HDFC Bank will have to install that model in their own server. ICICI Bank also will have to install the model in their own server. SBI also wants to install the model in their own server. So this is a significant drawback, right? So because if you are going to make any changes to the model in future, you need to do it in 3 different places. Okay, because your code is actually residing in their server. Okay, which is really a bad way of programming. So the model has been developed by you, but that code is there with HDFC server. And it is also there in ICICI server, it is also there in SBI server. So it's like any updates or any changes you do in future, you need to go to these 3 different places and you need to make the changes. It's the repeated changes you need to make. Okay, that's one of the drawback actually, right? So that those are the things that you need to know about a small introduction about this project. So you'll be understanding more about this implementation in the methodology part. So now coming to the objectives of our project. So objective is basically indicates the aim, like what are we aiming to do in this particular project. Let's go point wise. Okay, so the first step, we are going to implement an anomaly detection algorithm in machine learning model making use of Python programming language. So that means the straightforward, right? So we are going to implement this algorithm using Python programming language, so which will go through the transaction data and it will check whether that transaction is fraudulent or not. This is the first thing that we will have to do. Okay, and the second thing is we will have to train our model using thousands of transaction data so that it can automatically detect a new transaction whether it is fraudulent or not. Okay, so for training the data, I mean for training the model, we need some thousands of existing transaction data. So where do we get that? I'll tell you later on. Okay, and after the training is completed, we will have to test that model. Okay, so the accuracy rate can be determined, and we will have to prove that our system is way better than the existing system in terms of accuracy. That's the third thing we are going to do. And then we are going to improve the model, so maybe by changing some of the parameters to achieve more accuracy. Okay, so because the target, the fourth objective says that it should be better than any of the existing systems. Okay, that is because we are not the first person to solve this credit card transaction problem. Okay, there are numerous solutions already available. So if you want to propose a new solution, obviously you need to prove that it's better than the existing solution. So the accuracy should be way better than the existing systems. And the next objective is to implement the web services using Java and J2EE, so that the solution should be integratable with existing applications. So that means for solving this particular problem that I explained you a few minutes back. Okay, so rather than having the customers to install the model in their server, so let the model be in our own server, say maybe Amazon Web Service or Google Cloud, wherever it is. So let the solution be in our own server. Let those people request us for accessing the solution, like giving their transaction data to our server, and our server will give the response back to and tell them whether it is fraudulent or not. Okay, it's like the code will be in our system. Okay, those people will send a request to our system to run the project. Okay, so that's what we are supposed to do in the fifth objective. So once that is done, so we will have to deploy the solution over public cloud, as I told you, with Amazon Web Service or Google Cloud, wherever we will have to deploy the service. So that's because across the world there are many banks, right? Anybody who wants to use our solution, yes, they can readily go ahead and use that. To make that possible, we will have to deploy the solution on public cloud. Okay, so that's about so the objective of this particular project. So now let's go and check what are the motivations for our project. So motivation actually explains to you why did we choose this machine learning domain. So point number one, so the computers, I mean the machines, can take decisions faster and accurate than humans. So assume that if a human will have to decide among the 1,000 transaction data which all is fraudulent and which all is non-fraudulent, obviously is going to take a lot of time, and maybe he's going to do some mistakes at some point of time. But computers can't do that, right? It will be generally fast and it will be accurate. And also one of the research showed that the accuracy of humans are somewhere around 60 to 70%, whereas the computer will be getting greater than 90% accuracy in terms of calculations, because in terms of computers there are no chances for man-made errors, human errors. Okay, so the second motivation is machine learning helps humans to do their tasks of daily living. So not just the credit card transaction. So machine learning is applicable to many of the other areas, right? Like day-to-day activities, like Google uses machine learning for finding out the traffic intensity, whether it is heavily traffic or blue. You have seen the Google Maps, right? The blue color indicates light traffic, the red color indicates heavy traffic, like that. So that's using machine learning. And Amazon uses machine learning to suggest the products which you need to buy, so things like that. So everywhere in the daily life, right, machine learning is being used. And yes, it can learn from the human behavior. So as per your behavior, it can change its the modeling technique accordingly. And obviously nowadays, recently, every company's future focus is on AI and ML. So that's because the estimated revenue for this particular business is way too much for the next few years. So that's where our focus is on. Okay, so now let's go ahead and check what's the problem statement. So you are done with introduction, objective, motivations. So now let's go ahead for the problem definition. So the problem definition is just a formal statement of what are we trying to solve in our problem, I mean in our project. So the first point, so the fraud detection is a complex task, and there's no system that accurately predicts any transaction as fraudulent. So that means there are systems who does that, but the accuracy level is not acceptable. Okay, maybe they have 80% or 85 or 90% accuracy. Okay, so that will be solved by our project, which will have greater than 95% of accuracy. and most of the existing system will have that less accuracy because the outliers are not eliminated. Outliers are basically the noise, unwanted data, right? So those outliers are not eliminated in any of the existing system. We are the first one to propose this kind of solution where the outlier we are going to eliminate it. Okay, so that's why we'll be getting more uh, accuracy. So customers need to run that model in standalone environment. So that's also a problem, right? So that's because the customer needs to run the model in a standalone environment. That means this slide, whatever I just talked to you in few minutes back. Okay, so HDFC should have their own solution. ICICI Bank should have the solution in their environment. SBI also should have the solution in their environment. Okay, so this is called the standalone solution. Okay, which is once again a drawback, right? So that's the third problem statement. Okay, so now let's go to the literature review. So the literature survey is nothing but listing out the papers, existing systems, and briefly telling which technique they are going to use and listing out the drawbacks. Okay, so if you can see, this is the paper number 1 we have referred to, and this is the second paper, third, fourth and fifth paper. So there are 5 existing systems that we are going through. Okay, you can see the drawbacks of all the 5 existing systems. Okay, so all the 5 existing systems are standalone solution. Nobody will propose a web service based solution, and in all the 5 papers the outliers are still retained, they are not eliminated. Okay, that's why they have low accuracy rate. Okay, so but the first paper, right, proposed by so these many authors, so they uses simulated annealing algorithm. Okay, the second author proposed by Shailesh, okay, uses Eden Markov model. Okay, in the third paper, so making use of, and they won't propose a new technique, instead they just analyze most of the existing techniques, and they just still concludes that these drawbacks are still there. Okay, and fourth approach makes use of decision tree, and the fifth approach makes use of cortical learning algorithm. So no matter which algorithm or the technique they are using, so the drawbacks still exist. Okay, so that's the literature review. So now coming to the issues and challenges. So like what issues we are supposed to solve in our problem. Okay, that means in our project, what might be the possible challenges that we may face. Number 1, we need to remove the outliers, because that's what most of the existing system suffers from. Okay, we'll have to remove it. Number 2, the training the model should be done sufficient enough so that the accuracy improves above 95%. Right, and we will have to prove it. So we need to provide a formal proof of that accuracy. Okay, and more than that, we will have to make the integration easier. So that means for the existing HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, we need to make the integration easier by providing a web services. Okay, we should not ask them to download our code and install in their environment. Okay, things like that. Okay, so now let us go to the methodology. So the main part of this slide. So methodology basically explains to you how we are going to implement this particular project. Okay, so let's start with the scratch. So throughout the financial sector, right, so the machine learning algorithms are developed to detect a fraudulent transaction, and these things we already talked about it. Okay, so just a formal write-up of the methodology. So but let me just walk you through the methodology through a diagram so that you will understand better. Okay, so the first step what we are going to do in our project is we are going to develop a model, okay, making use of the Python programming language, making use of lot of machine learning libraries available. Okay, so which will make use of 2 algorithms. Okay, our model will be making use of 2 algorithms. So anomaly detection algorithm and so the local outlier factor algorithm. So using our Python programming language, using the machine learning libraries, we are going to make use of these couple of algorithms to develop a model. Okay, so what actually this model represents? This model is nothing but some piece of code. Okay, so this piece of code will be taking a transaction data as an input, and it will tell whether the transaction data is fraudulent transaction or non-fraudulent transaction. That will be the output. Okay, the input for this model is the transaction data, and the output from the model is the result, whether the data is fraudulent transaction or non-fraudulent transaction. Okay, so to do that, we will have to train our model with some data set. Okay, so that the model will understand how the fraudulent transaction look like and how the non-fraudulent transaction look like. So model will learn from this data set how this fraudulent data looks like and how non-fraudulent transaction look like, and then it will be capable enough for determining whether a new transaction data is fraudulent or not. So now where actually we are using, from where we are getting the data set? We are getting the data set from a site called kaggle.com. So that's because this is the universally approved site for using data sets for any of the machine learning problem. Okay, so let me just show you how to get the data set. So I'll just go to kaggle.com. So in kaggle.com, I'm going to search for the data sets. So what data set I want, I'm going to search it here. So I'll say credit card fraud. I'm going to search for it. There it is. Okay, I got credit card fraud detection, right? So here I'll be getting the data set. Okay, so you can see we got a data set of 144 MB, and there are multiple such data set. If you want more data set, you can make use of many. Okay, but this data set have 144 MB, and the data set will look like something like this. Okay, if you go ahead and if you want, you can go ahead and download. Just click on this download and check what it is, but it is just an Excel file. Okay, so it will have 31 columns as mentioned here. So the column number 1 will be the time at which the transaction has been executed, and the second column will be V1, third column will be V2, so up to the last column, okay, V28, and then 30th column will be the amount. Okay, what is the amount of that transaction, either the transaction amount spent or the amount received, whatever it is. And the last column indicates class indicates 1 indicates the fraudulent transaction, 0 indicates non-fraudulent transaction, right? So you don't have to worry about this V1, V2, V3, so because you don't know what these columns are actually. So maybe it is it's a result of some other process, or in simple words you can say these columns are not exposed, okay, for security reasons. So maybe it might contain the transaction identifier and the recipient email address or the sender email address, some sensitive information, right? So we in general we simply call it as V1, V2, V3 like that. Okay, so making use of such data set, we are going to train our model so that our model will be capable enough to analyze the new transaction data and check whether it is fraudulent or not. Okay, so this is the next thing we are going to do. And once we have done this, and once the training and testing everything is done, we are going to make this solution available on live cloud. I mean this entire solution, we will implement it on live cloud. Okay, we are going to purchase a cloud machine from Amazon Web Service. Okay, so from Amazon Web Service we are going to purchase a live cloud machine. Okay, on that cloud machine, we are going to install the model that we just developed. Okay, so this is our cloud machine. Okay, so this is our cloud machine, this entire thing, whatever is highlighted here. So on our cloud machine we have the model. Okay, so this model, how we have developed, this model has been developed using the machine learning Python programming language by implementing these two algorithms and making use of the data sets, etc. Okay, so that model is installed on Amazon Web Service. To make this model available to our customers, right? Okay, we are going to implement an additional layer called web services. Okay, and this will be done using Java. Okay, so the model will be implemented using Python. the web services will be implemented using Java. Okay, so what actually this web services will do, so this web services will expose this solution to existing customers like this. Okay, like if HDFC Bank wants to analyze its customer data for fraudulent or not, this HDFC Bank will send that data to our web service. Web service will give that data as an input to this model. This model will give the output back to the web service saying that it is either fraudulent or non-fraudulent. That output will be given back to HDFC Bank like that. So that's how the web service will work. It will accept the client request, it will run the model against that client request and give back the output to the customer. So this way the customers need not install the model in their environment. Okay, the model will be there in our own web service, in our own Amazon web service. Amazon cloud is ours. Okay, so the solution will be there in our cloud, but still the customer across the world, okay, maybe HDFC Bank server resides in America, ICICI and SBI in India, like that. So across the world people can use our solution through this web service. Okay, that's what we are doing in our project. And for implementing the project, so these many reference papers might help us. Okay, thank you so much.